it's Chloe Say the Victor. Well, how's everybody doing today? Amazing, I hope. It's your older than average YouTuber here for another episode of Build a Palette. This time we are doing the Unearthly Cosmetics Leather and Lace Palette. If you want to see what colors I chose, swatches, eye look, you're in the right place. And you know what you need to do? You need to keep on watching. Okay, let's build this palette. Glasses on so I can read you things, and let's swatch. So, for a 12 pan palette, I don't think I've ever swatched as much for even that big one that I did that was, I don't know, like 30 shades or whatever. I literally did the full arm twice. Like every space taken to find what I think are the right shades. So, we are building, as you would have seen, the Unearthly Cosmetics Leather and Lace Palette. I had been requested to do that. Apparently somebody thought it was a little bit too neutral, but then when they saw Make Me Up Miss do the palette, they were thinking that it was a nice palette and one that maybe needed a build. I'm a huge fan of Unearthly, and actually the first colors I decided to swatch was to go through my collection to see if anything duplicated or was close, and really nothing was. So that's very cool. So then I kind of expanded my horizons and then just went through my collection. There may be a couple new ones here. There's a couple ones that have been used in other palette builds before, because I do have a color story palette type thing that I like. So here we go. So the first shade in here, and it looks a little bit more icier on some of the skin tones. You'll see, I'll post up here showing the 3 sets of swatches on light, kind of tan and darker skin, but it definitely was a white with a pink base. And then the closest one that I found was from the Glaminatrix Nocturnal palette. And I checked in a few, and I found a few that were close, but I thought the shade Milky Way was a little bit the closest when I was kind of trying to compare to all swatches. So, and this time I'm going to try not to put them too far apart, but this was the first shade that I picked that I thought that would work out. So, see, it has this nice shift, so it goes from light to the pink. So I thought this worked really well as the first shade, or at least the closest in my collection. And again, that was the Nocturnal palette from Glaminatrix, and this is the shade Milky Way. I adore this palette. There were a couple other shades that were pretty close, but that was the color from this palette that we used today. So now the second shade, so the second 2, 3, and 4 were actually interesting to, oh no, 2 and 3, 4 was easy, it's a black. 2 and 3 were a little bit harder to find, kind of like the close enough tone. But for number 2, I went to Hallo. So this is the Shroud Cosmetics X BattyBean, and the shade that I picked was the shade Crypt. So it is that shade there, and I thought it looks lighter here, but it felt like it was closer to the right shade of mustard. So that swatches there, and then let's go right there. So I thought that matched pretty good. And again, I have nothing down, it's just on skin. So probably with a base, it would definitely go on darker, but that's what I thought was great for the second shade. And again, that's from Hallo, BattyBean X Shroud Cosmetics. The third one too, I had to go through a few different palettes just to kind of find the right hue, I guess, or tone. All the other ones were just slightly off, but this was the closest, and this is from the P.Louise Money Shot. This is this big, huge, unwieldy palette, but is one of my favorite palettes of all time, and made it into, if my palettes disappeared, I would need to rebuy. And the shade that I picked for number 3 is the shade Riches. So here it looks a little bit darker, so depending on how I hold it and which way to the light, it looks like a way darker green, but when I swatch it, it gives that nice kind of murky green look that number 3 had. Hold on, let me just, there we go, we scratch that there. So again, it isn't exact, because again, it's really hard to find ones that were exact, but either other ones I had were a little bit too light or a little bit too or kind of brighter. So this was the closest that I felt that gave that kind of murky green look that I have in the palette. So again, that is from the bottom tray of the P.Louise Money Shot, and that is the shade Riches. So I thought that was great for number 3. So number 4, easy enough. I could have probably picked from almost any palette, but I was kind of feeling this palette, and it has 2 shades in a row. So this is from Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Home for the Holidays. This was a limited edition palette that came out not last Christmas, but I think the Christmas before. They had put out a palette that got recalled, but there were some really great colors and everybody was like, oh, why can't you, this color's pretty, that color's pretty, can you release it in something else? So what they did was a limited edition palette pulling out the most beautiful shades that was from that palette, and they might have added 1 or 2 different ones as well. But I thought for number 4 we would take the shade Dusty as the black for the palette, and because it is a beautiful black. And we will just put that there, and there we go. So that's what I did for shade number 4. And then again, this is Nomad Home for the Holidays, and this will also be for number 5. So number 5 this was another one that was a little bit hard to find, and because it was trying to find the right shimmery peach that wasn't too orange, wasn't too pink leaning, and the closest one I thought that matched in my collection was the shade called Kaiser, which is this one here, and I thought that this one was a good number 5. Oh, I guess I shouldn't put on the finger that I had the black on. That is not good. So anyways, there we go. That's what I had as number 5. And again, it depends on which skin tone you're looking at the swatches. The darker skin tone, it does look more like this. And then yeah, on the lighter one too, pretty close. It might look a little bit lighter, but I thought this was definitely the closest one. Such a pretty shade. So again, that is from Nomad Home for the Holidays, and the shade Kaiser. So I think that's all we used from that palette, and that's number 5. So now we're going to go on to number 6. Number 6 is going to be, we're going to go back to Halloween, and again, that's the Shroud Cosmetics BattyBean Halloween collab. This is the second one that they did together, and for shade number 6, it is the shade Loser Club. I was looking at an Unearthly cosmetic shade in one of my palettes, but that was close, but wasn't quite close enough, and this one I thought was number 6, or red number 6 better. So I'm just gonna go pop that there, and then is this a beautiful, it's like, it's orangey, but not bright. So like a nice kind of more grungier orange. And that was Loser's Club from the Halloween BattyBean Shroud Cosmetics. So there we go. And that's halfway through the palette, and I'm still making big spaces. I don't know what's wrong with me, but here we go. So that's halfway through. So 7 and 8 were the hardest ones to find. Again, I don't have tons of neutrals, and I didn't have too much that kind of read this browny ochre color and a kind of like a chocolatey shade. But at the last minute, I found them both in the Kimchi palette. So this is, I think, the first palette that she ever released, and it is presenting the Rainbow Sharts palette, and this is a mostly neutral palette, but with these stunning pops of color right there. So for the first shade, so number 7, it is the shade called Burgundy, and you can see here it doesn't look like what you can traditionally think of a burgundy, but you can tell it's a neutral that does have a bit of a red base. But it was the closest that I could find in my collection that didn't read totally red that I thought would be great for number 7, and that's this shade here. So there we go. So that is Burgundy. It is a little bit darker looking at this on some of the swatches, but again, if you look at the lightest skin tone, it looks pretty close to this. So there we go. And since it's the same palette, number 8, this one was a brown shade, but it was trying to find the right type of warmth, depth, etc. And the closest one that I had in my collection was the shade Chocolate. So we're gonna go and grab that here. So Chocolate is a number 8. So there we go, number 8. I know the swatches aren't that great, but this is just, again, on skin, no primer, no nothing. So number 8, so that is the from Rainbow Sharts, Kimchi Chic Cosmetics. And there we go. This is a loved palette. That was also a gift. All right, so now we're on to shade number 9. I don't know if we've used this palette. We've used this brand before in a make, but I'm not sure if we've used this one. So this is the Frosty Flamingo from Sugar Drizzle Polish, and we use the shade Pink Ice for number 9. So number 9, again, it looked like it was a purpley pink. I didn't check to see if anything were duochromes or anything. Some of them do look a little shifty, but I thought that Pink Ice was the closest one. I had 2 or 3 picked out, and then at the end I decided that this would be the best one. So there we go. So that is number 9, and that is Pink Ice, the Frosty Flamingo. So now I guess I'm going to have to change the sides, or maybe I'll go to the side. So the next shade is also from this one as well. And again, Frosty Flamingo, Sugar Drizzle Polish. And it is the shade called Shrimp Slushie. And this is the one that I thought had the right, purpley, muted purple. Yeah, so it wasn't like a bright purple, but oh yeah, we were going to do it on the other side, weren't we? When you're old, you forget things. So there we go. So I felt that it had the right kind of shade of purple. And again, looking at your skin tone, this shade looks, I think, a little bit more like how it looks on the darkest swatches, but I will have at the end the comparisons. So that is from number 10. That is a Shrimp Slushie from the Frosty Flamingo by Sugar Drizzle Polish. All right, so we've got 2 more to go. Now we're on shade 11. So 11 and 12 are a bit hard as well because they're super dark. So it depends when you look at the palette. When you look at the palette picture, they look more almost towards burgundy-ish, but then when you see the swatches, they're super duper dark. So for number 11, I took my trusty Spooked palette by Gourmande Girls, and it is the shade Fright, was the shade that we used for number 11. And let's grab a nice swatch with the proper hand. So that shade there. And like I said, even in this palette too, it looks a little bit lighter, but then when you swatch it really good, it is definitely reads darker. So that's what we picked for shade number 11, and that is Fright from the Spooked palette there. And then last, but certainly not least, is one of the darkest shades in the palette. And again, if you look at the palette itself, it looks dark, but not as dark as how it swatches. And I went again to Shroud Cosmetics to the original collab, and this is when she was BattyBean. This is the It's Freakin' Bats palette, and we picked this shade Derry, which is and this one looked like pretty close to the palette, and I think it swatched the closest to than what I had. And then this is number 12. Look how dark that is. So again, in here it looks a little bit lighter, but once you swatch it, look how dark it is. And that's kind of how it is with the Unearthly one. So that is shade number 12. And again, that's Derry from It's Freakin' Bat Shroud Cosmetics. So there we go. This is our 12 shades to make the Leather and Lace Unearthly Cosmetics palette. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take pictures, wash my arm for the 3rd time, and then we can do a quick eye look and have a quick chat. So we'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, I am back. I've already primed my eyes. I thought, let's do it. And I've decided that we're going to use the last colors that we did. Let's do a dark look. So we are going to be using these 3 palettes. So we're going to be using the Shroud, It's Freakin' Bats, the Spooked by Gourmande Girls, and the Frosty Flamingo from Sugar Drizzle Polish. And we are going to start with our first shade, and we're going to use the darkest in the bunch, and we're going to go with the shade Derry. And let's just do a kind of smoky look with a little bit of shimmer. I think will be good for today. I'm going to go on to a Zoom call shortly. I'm running a few minutes late, but they can happily chat without me in the beginning as I finish a look here. Plus I want to go on looking my best, right? So there we go. So this is again the shade Derry from Shroud Cosmetics. Look how beautiful this goes on. And I'm using a fluffy brush. A lot of times with a fluffy brush it automatically puts on everything way lighter and way diffused. So you can imagine what it would be like with a packing brush. But I just want to do a nice blown out kind of smoky look, and I also don't want to drop shadow everywhere if I can, because I already did my base. You know how sometimes you just have those days where you just really can't get motivated? You want to get motivated, but your body's like, no way. You can watch another episode of Car SOS. Yes, you can. I love watching Car SOS. It's a new show that I discovered. It's been around for 10 years apparently. It's a British car show where they take mostly vintage cars and they take them from wrecks and redo them, and they do them for people that have had, you know, weren't able to, due to family problems, health issues, age, finances, people who really deserve to have their beautiful dream cars put back on the road. So they're always, the majority of them are very beautiful, heartwarming stories. And I get to look at all of the beautiful classic cars. And if I win the lotto, I want a Range Rover. So there we go. A vintage one, 1971. All right, there we go. We've got our Derry on. This one does have a little bit of kickback, so you have to be a little bit careful because I got some Derry in my shimmer. All right, so there we go. But like I said, it goes on beautiful. And this is another one where you just pick up that little bit of kick up and you're good to go. All right, so let's go now to the next darkest, and that would be Fright, and that's from the Gourmande Girls. So that is that shade there. I'm going to take a still floofy brush, but a slightly smaller one. This is from Spectrum. What is this one? This one is the A12. So that we can go in there, and then we're going to go into the shade Fright. Thought these would go nicely together, and then we're going to do that in the middle-ish here. Can be kind of like the transition shade. Just pop that in. We're going to do a nice smoky eye. And no, I'm not wearing the same shirt that I wore in my last video. It's by the same company. I really like murder t-shirts here. So this one is, what is this one? This is True Crime and Wine. So murder apparel, that's it. I really like their t-shirts. I have a whole whack of them, but I wore it all through swatching. So there's eyeshadow all over it, you know how it goes. When you keep over and over again swatching and then washing and then re-swatching, it gets everywhere. I have a very noisy neighborhood. That's what I get for being between two highways. So that is Fright for Gourmande Girl. So I just packed that on. I'm just going to take that same floofy brush from before. I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing on it. And I'm just going to quickly blend together there. Like I said, we're just doing a dark smoky eye for today. So there we go. I'm just sitting at home. And then I'm using the same brush, but cleaning it off. Let's go into Frosty Flamingo, and we're gonna go into Shrimp Slushie, which is a slightly brighter shade in the kind of purpley family, but it's still dark. So we're going to take that. I just wasn't sure if you wanted to see me do yet another green eye look. So I thought, let's be a little bit different and play with these dark purples. Could have played with those browns and ochre too. That was an idea, but I really liked how those last few shades swatched. So I thought, let's do that. Who doesn't like a smoky purpley eye look, right? There we go. And see. And I know I promised to do a deep dive. On favorite brand, and I was going to start with Kaleidos, but I just need to find some time. I'm hoping this coming weekend or the weekend after, which is a long weekend, that I can spend a day working on other things. And happily, we had some new releases to look at this week, so that was nice. Temptation was abound this week. That was good. I bought none. So there we go. That is the shade Shrimp Slushie. So that was that shade there. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go and take that nice floofy brush, make sure that that there's nothing on it, and then we're going to quickly remove it. There we go. See how pretty is that? Oh, we're going to need to do the bottom too, right? Okay, so for the bottom lash line, let's just take Derry and the Slushie shade. Let me just take a slightly smaller brush, and let's just do those two on the bottom. Hopefully not getting anything on her face. And there we go. So that's again using the shade Derry. Hi, honey. And then we are going to quickly again go into Shrimp Slushie, and then we're going to go take a nice shimmery shade. There we go. Oh, I like this. It's definitely smoky. Okay, so last thing, yes, my love. So last thing, we are going to do a shimmer. Let's grab ourselves a flattish brush here. There we go. I remembered spray, and we're going to go into Pink Ice in the Frosty Flamingo, which was that shade there. And then we're going to go pop that on. Look how pretty that is. Give it a spray. And let's, there we go. And just add, mostly up front, but I'm still going to tap it over. Get a little shimmer all over. There we go. That's so nice. Then let's just take a little bit with our phalange. And you can see really how pretty that is. And then just pop a little bit more on the front part. And so there we go. So that is our quick look, playing with our leather and lace palette builds. All right, so I'm just going to finish up, then we'll come back and have ourselves some final thoughts. Okay, so here we can see what the original palette looks like in all its grungy and pinky shade gorgeousness. Here are the swatches. It's supposed to be a light, medium, and dark skin tone. I think it's mostly still light, but there we are. Here is what my palette looks like up close with the colors that I took. It's close, but again, photos always look different from the swatches. Here is the comparison of them both. I think I did a decent job. You can see it more kind of in the swatches versus that photo, and here we go, the swatches matching up to the original swatches. I think I did good again. Okay, there we go. I didn't do a lot, just added a little bit of my current favorite dose of colors. Liquid lip, put on just a little bit of eyeliner along the edge of my lash, a little mascara, and we are, oh, and push my bang down, and we are done. This is more about the build of the palette than it is about the look, but I do like my dark purpley eye look. So there we go. That's us building the leather and lace Unearthly Cosmetics palette. using palettes from our own collection. It's a very cool color story. It was originally one that I wasn't going to get either, but now that I kind of put it together and played with the colors, I really do like that color story. So when I'm back off my no buy, and if I'm buying something from Unearthly and maybe it's on sale, I would maybe put the leather and lace one in. But I do know if I need to, I do have the shades in my collection. So if you like this video, please give it a like, a comment, and subscribe, and maybe even hit that notification bell. If not, that's okay. We can still be friends. We can still build palettes together. As always, behave, make good choices, and we will talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.